The answer comes in Revelation 12:9, which says this: Satan deceives the whole world. Satan deceives the whole world. Paul told the Corinthians he is disguised as an angel of light, and therein lies the deception. So what we're dealing with in the world is not just a complex of human evil, as vast and complete and comprehensive as it is. We're dealing with another level altogether, not just that visible human world, but that invisible demonic world. And Satan's ultimate goal is to prevent people from coming to Christ. His ultimate goal is to take over everything, to rule in the place of God. He is the usurper. And he has a goal. He has an objective. He's heading human history toward his kingdom. He has a goal. He has an objective. Satan is systematically working to get to his kingdom. That kingdom is described for us in the book of Revelation. Turn to chapter 13 of Revelation, one of the most amazing images in this incredible revelation. As he moves through human history, Satan wants to strip all elements of divine law and all elements of divine truth from society. He's moving the world into his final design. Chapter 13, verse 1, John has a vision of a dragon on the sand of the seashore, and he sees a monster, a beast, coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. This is a monster. This is a monster who consolidates power and consolidates national leadership. The 10 and the 7 speak of that consolidation. All the crowns are on his head, and all of them have the name of blasphemy, because this is the kingdom that Satan is pulling together as the final attempt to dethrone God. It describes this kingdom as having powers like a leopard, a bear, and a lion. And what we find here is this monster is none other than the final Antichrist. Even now, John says there are many Antichrists. This is the final one. He rises up out of the sea, out of the nations. He consolidates all world power. This is globalism, symbolized by 10 horns, a number of completion, as his 7 heads. He has the consolidated power and the consolidated authority. He is a blasphemer, but a powerful one. And the dragon is Satan. And the dragon gave the Antichrist in John's vision his power, his throne, and his great authority. At some point in the future, the world will be, verse 3 says, amazed at this monster. And as a result of his influence, they will worship the devil, the dragon, because he gave his authority to the beast. They worship the beast, the monster, the Antichrist, saying, who is like the beast and who is able to wage war with him? Understand, all of human history is progressing toward a global kingdom under the power of Satan, in which Satan has one global monster ruling the whole world. He is a blasphemer. We've already seen it, but notice blasphemies in verse 5, blasphemies in verse 6, blaspheme in verse 6 again, and verse 7. What does he do? He makes war with the saints to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. This final global ruler will make war against the saints. Verse 8, all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name was not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who had been slain. The whole world is going to go after him. We're headed toward a one world global government with one massive, monstrous leader. He has a cohort in verses 11 and following. This is another monster who has two horns like a lamb. This is a more benign individual. This is the false prophet. This is the religious leader who, going along with the political leader, assists him. He exercises all the authority of the first monster. He makes the earth and those who dwell in it worship the first monster whose fatal wound was healed. Apparently there's some kind of false resurrection, which is how he gains power. And then he performs great signs, verse 13, making fire come down out of heaven in the presence of men. Verse 14, he deceives those who dwell on the earth. Again, this is Satan, which is given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. So once he has this false resurrection, he then establishes himself as the world ruler, and the false prophet points the world to him. Go down to verse 16. We don't have time to cover all the details. He causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, free men and slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the monster or the number of his name, which is 666. So we're headed toward a time when there's a global satanic kingdom. It consolidates all kingdoms of the world. It is under the final monster Antichrist, designed by the devil himself, and the entire world follows him. The entire world. Along with this political leader, there is a spiritual leader. This is the false prophet. He is the one who lures, seduces the world religiously to worship the Antichrist. So he becomes God. He is Satan's puppet. One world religion. That final world religion is the target of judgment in John's vision of Revelation 17. Go to Revelation 17. Here, this one world religion, consolidated with the Antichrist and the false prophet, is called the Great Harlot because it's the prostitution of true religion. Sits on many waters, which means it just literally covers the globe. With whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality. This is to say that the kings, the rulers, the nations of the world consolidate all their power. Metaphorically speaking, it's like committing adultery with a prostitute. And those who dwell on the earth are drunk with the wine of her immorality. So what's going to happen in the end is this massive global unification of the entire world under the Antichrist, and there will be a religious component to it led by the false prophet. And again, verse 3, you see the scarlet monster full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That again is a reference to Antichrist. Then you see the harlot, the false religion, clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations of the unclean things of her immorality, and on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. This false religion is depicted as the prostitute of the final global one world kingdom. The prostitute religion, the apostate religion. She is drunk, verse 6 says, with the blood of the saints because they persecute the saints. The Antichrist's kingdom will persecute the saints, kill the saints, shed the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. How does it all end? If you come down to verse 14, these will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. So this is where Satan's going. He is pulling the world together, unifying the world in a way that never could have been done in the past because he didn't have the technology to do it. But they wage war against the Lamb, and that is a losing proposition. Because the Lamb will overcome them, verse 14 says, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called and chosen and faithful. This is where history is going. Don't be surprised at globalistic efforts. Don't be surprised at governments turning on divine truth. This is Satan's plan. In chapter 18, you have a look at the final world culture. The religion is what is revealed in chapter 17. In chapter 18, you see rather just the culture of the world. The kings of the earth, in verse 9, who have committed acts of immorality and live sensuously, will weep and lament over her when they see the smoke of her burning. What does that mean? Well, back at verse 8, in one day her plagues will come, pestilence and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire, for the Lord God who judges her is strong. In the end, God is going to bring down that global religion and that global kingdom as well.